And I think the first time I wore them, I took them to a CrossFit class. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, my cheeks are showing a little bit too much here. So I did my CrossFit class, sweated appropriately. When I got home and took them off and gave them a sniff, I'm sad to say they were not vagina proof.
We found the kryptonite and it is lady parts. Welcome to This Fucking Trail, home to brutally honest takes on Texas trails, hiking, hilarity, and all things adventure-y. I'm your MC, John, and I'm here to warn you that this podcast is not for young children or anyone with a sensitivity to swears or strong opinions. And now over to the hiking hostess with the mostest and intrepid explorer, affirmed potty mouth, not to mention my wife, Gabrielle.
Yep, that's me. Today is a shit you should buy, or not, episode. Our version of a product review, where we cover our favorite and least favorite products that we have used hiking, camping, and backpacking. We hope that these reviews will help inform your purchasing decisions and steer you clear from shit you may regret. John, what are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, so this is one of those rare episodes where I'm jumping into the foreground a little bit. So we are going to be talking about a clothing apparel brand called Ably Apparel, and specifically the technology that's used in their clothing called Filium, which is pretty relevant to people who spend a lot of time outside in the wet or sweating. People like me, for example, who maybe sweat a little more than average.
You do sweat quite a lot.
Yeah.
You have been known to leave puddles of sweat behind after a workout.
This is fact that I cannot deny. So we're going to be talking about Ably Apparel and how the Filium technology helps to, if not resolve this issue, at least maybe mitigate it to some extent. Mitigate some of the side effects.
Okay. And you're taking the lead on this because you're a huge Ably fan. This is something that you've really embraced.
I am absolutely a big fan of their products. I own a bunch of different clothing from them, and I hope to own more in the future. I'm very diligent about making sure that I use my rewards points and any coupon codes I get from them to pick stuff up as I go. Because
we'd love to be sponsored by Ably if anybody's out there with a hookup.
Yeah, I think we actually have a referral code that we can drop in the show notes if somebody is interested in checking them out. They can take advantage of that, but we can talk about that after we've actually talked about the product and why you might be interested in this.
Okay, so first off, when did you start using Ably? How did you kind of get into this?
Yeah, so it's been a few years now. I actually don't remember exactly when I first bought this, but I'm thinking around 2021. Maybe I picked up a t-shirt.
That sounds right. I remember you wearing it for the first time on our very first trip to Big Bend Ranch State Park, and that was, I think, October of 2021.
Yeah, and as far as I remember, I first became aware of Ably Apparel from an ad on YouTube. Just some random ad, and I was like, this is clearly nonsense. There's no way that what they're doing in the ad is real. They're doing things like squirting ketchup onto a t-shirt and then taking like a water bottle, like one of the squeeze ones, and just squirting water on the shirt and washing the ketchup right off and like leaving nothing behind, things like that, where it's like, okay, this feels like a setup. But I saw these ads a bunch, and I was like, okay, I got to check it out. I got to like read into what is the deal here.
Okay, what is the deal?
So basically, there is a company called Filium, which developed a proprietary technology that they use to modify natural fibers, predominantly cotton and cotton-derived fibers, at a molecular level. So this is not something like when you're buying clothing from them, it's basically always cotton or something cotton related, like modal.
That's good to know because, that's not maybe the best choice for winter hiking.
However, if you are someone who is very interested in wearing natural fibers, you want to stay away from polyesters and other plasticky fibers for any number of reasons that people might feel negatively about those. This is an option for someone who wants to be able to wear cotton or other natural fibers and get some of the benefits that you might normally be getting from wearing a polyester or another engineered fiber. So what happens is this treatment that they apply to the cotton changes the properties of the cotton. Cotton is normally very absorbent. Extremely absorbent. Not only absorbs water, but also any other molecules that might be trapped in that water, like, say, the molecules that make sweat super stinky. And so this treatment creates a hydrophobic property in the cotton. It makes the cotton anti-water. It repels water. It repels stains from any sort of like water-bearing, substance, like ketchup is the example from the commercial, right? That's the easy one. Ketchup has a lot of water in it, and ketchup can stain pretty easily, but it won't stain on a Filium treated cotton fabric. However, it does not make it, it doesn't cause any other significant changes in terms of like the breathability, the softness. Those things are still going to be present. So it's pretty radical in terms of what they've achieved and the way that it kind of takes cotton to the next level and makes cotton not something that you can just wear on a cool day, but something that you can sweat in and not feel like it's going to be just absolutely disgusting afterwards. The other thing that's great about it is this is not a chemical treatment. They're actually altering the molecular structure of the cotton, and that means that it's environmentally friendly. You're not leaching chemicals into the environment. You're not leaching chemicals into your skin. This isn't something that can wash out, so you're not getting something onto your other clothes or causing stains on other clothes. So it's extremely environmentally friendly in that regard. And I think the last thing to note, I mentioned sweat. One of the reason that I buy Ably Apparel, if we're being completely honest, the sole reason, has nothing to do with stain resistance, has nothing to do with it being environmentally friendly. It has everything to do with sweat, and specifically how bad I stink when I sweat into a cotton shirt. I own a lot of cotton t-shirts or a lot of tri-blend t-shirts. I think most people do. And when you sweat into them, they get real nasty.
Yes, you are disgusting in a regular cotton t-shirt if you're doing anything slightly physical.
Yeah, even after like a climbing session in an air-conditioned gym, my pits, they let you know I've been working. However, if I'm wearing one of my Ably shirts, that doesn't happen. There might still be a little bit of sweat smell from me, but the shirt hasn't been soaking it up. And so the shirt doesn't stink. And actually, what I've found is that a big part of the stink isn't really the sweat on my skin so much as it is the fact that the shirt I've been wearing has been absorbing that sweat for an hour or 2 hours or however long I've been sweating for. And so that sweat stink builds and builds and builds and gets really gnarly. But that problem is solved with this technology. So it's pretty fantastic in the odor resistance terms. And we can talk a little bit more about odor resistance.
So just to make sure I understand here, it's odor resistant because it's hydrophobic. So as you're sweating,
Correct.
Your sweat is not absorbing into the shirt. And that's kind of how it works.
Exactly. Right. Yep. So they will get wet. These clothes will get wet, but they dry really quickly. I think on the website, they say that they dry about 40% faster than standard materials, whether that's cotton, wool, linen. So they dry nearly twice as fast as a standard fabric that's not been treated in this way. So it dries really quickly, and it also ejects all of those water mediated molecules. So all of the smell molecules, those are trapped in water, and that's how they get into your shirts and things. Because this fabric is hydrophobic, it ejects those molecules. It doesn't retain them, which means that you aren't soaking up stink and then radiating stink around you. It all evaporates very quickly. And so
Doesn't that happen in a regular shirt as your regular shirt dries?
Yes, but very slowly. And so the water is holding on to the stink. And so you're radiating stink that's been compounded for a long time. Because this dries so quickly, and because it also resists getting wet in the first place, it doesn't absorb that. And so your sweat dries, and basically you're not like giving off the smell molecules. Look, I don't fully understand how smell works. It's a bit of a black box for me. This isn't a science podcast. Okay.
All right. I'll stop giving you a hard time. I'm just trying to really and truly understand it. And this, yeah. All right, let's move on.
You can ask a scientist if you want to understand how smell works. You're asking the wrong person.
I guess, long story short, these shirts don't stink. Even after you've sweated and dried, I have smelled your pits in these shirts, and they're not so bad. They pass my sniff test.
Which is saying a lot because you've got the super smeller.
Yeah, I might not be a scientist who studies smells, but my nose is like a bloodhound's nose.
Yeah.
If you stink, I'm going to pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's kind of the summary on the science side of things. So let's talk a little bit about Ably. So Filium is a company that makes the technology and treats the fabric, and they have a manufacturing process in place to produce these fabrics that are treated or to treat the fabrics after they've been produced. Ably is a clothing company. So they license the technology from Filium, and then they make clothing using treated fabrics. And so they make all kinds of different clothing. Ably's kind of a general clothing brand, so you can get, pretty much whatever you would get from a normal clothing store, you can get from them. But it's going to be natural fibers, and it's going to be all treated with the Filium technology. So all of their stuff is largely stain resistant. I think not completely, not perfectly stain resistant, but it's going to be a lot harder to leave a permanent mark, which is nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. Did you have any specific questions for me? Throw something at me here.
Why do you like it? Like, personally, why have you stuck with it? What, we've kind of touched on that, but let's get a little bit more specific.
Yeah. Okay, so after I got interested in it, I thought, okay, let's test this out. Let's buy a t-shirt. That's going to be the easiest way to see if this is legit. And so I did. I picked out a t-shirt, had a nice topographic mountain on it. And I was like, okay, well, this is cool. This is the right style. I can wear this out hiking and camping. And that's exactly what we did, right? We went out to Big Bend Ranch State Park. And I wore this shirt for, let's see, do you remember how long we were out there?
I think we were out there for 3 full days.
So I wore this shirt every day for 3 days.
And we did some intense stuff. We were hiking. We were climbing up, like literally climbing up straight up mountains. We were mountain biking.
Yeah. This was, we're talking, 10 plus mile hiking days in the Texas sun. Even if it's not hot out, just being out in the sun.
It was hot during the day.
But yeah, it was actually pretty hot. So I was sweating into this shirt nonstop for 3 days. And every day I'd give it a sniff at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, and it passed the smell test.
Yeah, I remember sniffing it with you.
Right, I think you were pretty skeptical.
I was like, what the hell? This fucker just dropped whatever amount of money on a t-shirt that's not gonna work. What's this fool doing?
Yeah, and to be honest, I was pretty skeptical as well. I was fully prepared to contact them and be like, hey, this didn't work. I want my money back. But I kept that shirt.
You still have it.
I still have that shirt, yeah. The design has faded away, but the shirt retains its smell-resistant properties. It's pretty magical, to be honest. The amount of sweat that I've poured through that thing, and it just keeps on not stinking.
Yeah.
I have washed it since then. They do eventually get stinky. It's not a perfect solution. I think at the end of the 3 days, there was a little bit of odor, but that's pretty friggin' good.
Yeah, that's impressive. So what has your Ably wardrobe evolved into? What kind of stuff are you using now?
Yeah, so now to be clear, there are currently 2 licensed resellers of Filium treated fabrics. So there's Ably Apparel's the main one, and they sell athletic clothes, lounge clothes, everyday stuff, kind of the full range, various accessories. And then there's also another one called Zenkai Sport, and they started off selling just specifically sportswear, shorts, compression clothing. I think they're Canadian because a lot of their stuff seemed pretty targeted toward like hockey players initially, and they've expanded a little bit since then.
We're talking about Ably though here.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there. There is another option, and I do have some Zenkai stuff as well. So for Ably, I have a couple of t-shirts, which are fantastic. I really love those t-shirts. And let's see, I have a gator actually that I got for Christmas this past year, which is great. So I got that because I wanted something to kind of protect my neck, and especially the back of my neck from the sun. But I've also, I took it on flights recently to wear over my head as like a sleep mask. But, it can also kind of serve as a face mask if we're out somewhere that's really dusty. I can pull it up over my mouth and nose to protect myself from the dust. So gators are nice and they're a pretty versatile garment.
Yeah, they are.
And that, I think, is going to be very nice because, again, wearing it around my neck, it's going to, I think, help keep me cool during the day, help protect me from the sun, but it's not going to be like disgusting at the end of the day, having soaked up all the sweat.
What else do you have?
I've got some socks, which I love my socks because, boy, socks, talk about a piece of clothing that gets disgusting. Just walking around in Texas for a couple of hours in a pair of socks, I feel like obligated to change them because they're so gross. But my Ably socks, I can wear 3-4 days in a row, and it's only by like the very end of that I'm like, oh, okay, I probably should wash these now.
Nice.
So I have a nice kind of a thicker pair that I wear for hiking. I have some ankle socks for everyday wear. I love those. The other big thing that I have that is great also for camping and backpacking is underwear. I think we all know that your underwear, when you're out hiking a lot, get a little gnarly, The stink can get intense. The chafing can be a problem when things absorb a lot of sweat. You can get a lot of rubbing. That's very unpleasant.
Boy, we're getting real personal here.
Yeah, well, it's...
Hey, this is a podcast of strong opinions and some adult content.
Yeah, so I really love my Ably underwear, and it's for all the same reasons that I love the rest of their stuff.
Now,
right?
When you say underwear, are we talking like tidy whities? What are we talking here?
So I'm talking shorts. I wear the boxer shorts. I guess I don't remember if they sell briefs, but
I don't think they do, because I've actually been the one, I think, to purchase all of your Ably underwear.
Right, yeah.
And I think all I've ever seen is boxer shorts.
Yeah, great little Christmas gifts. But yeah, so I love the shorts. They're comfortable. They're light, because they are made with these natural fibers. They're, for the most part, quite soft, very comfortable to wear. And at the end of a long day in the sun, sweating a ton, I'm not chafing. They don't stink. And so we can go on a hiking trip. And I think that one of the biggest sort of like benefits that it'd be easy to miss here is how much less clothing I have to pack when we go on a hiking trip.
Yeah. Yeah. Between the shirts, the underwear, the socks, if you're only packing one of each of those items, that's a lot less clothing. Because otherwise, if you were wearing regular shirts, you'd have to be wearing 2 different shirts a day, one for morning, one for night.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm kind of hoping that I'm going to be able to, at some point, maybe persuade you to take a jump, because I feel like, as somebody who does a lot of backpacking, if you can cut the amount of clothing that you wear down to just one set of clothing for the whole trip, I mean, that's a huge win. Now, you might just be wearing one set of clothing anyways, and it just it really gets rank.
Well, I wear smart wool, merino wool, which has similar properties. Definitely not as stink proof as your Ably stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, my stuff just kind of gets gnarly. I personally have a little bit of a bad taste for Ably in my mouth because...
So we got to make this as an honest review. They're not perfect.
No. So you raved so much about your Ably stuff that, like we've talked about, underwear stink, shorts stink when you're active in them. And so I decided I wanted to try their shorts. So I bought this pair of shorts. They looked, if I'm honest, like underwear. They're very small. When I got them, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, I feel like a little bit of a slut putting these on. And I think the first time I wore them, I took them to a CrossFit class. I was like, oh my gosh, my cheeks are showing a little bit too much here. So I did my CrossFit class, sweated appropriately. When I got home and took them off and gave them a sniff, I'm sad to say they were not vagina proof.
Yeah, so that's, where I mentioned before, they're not perfect. We found the kryptonite, and it is lady parts.
Yeah, so I don't wear my Ably shorts very often, and I haven't bought anything since then. Not because I don't believe in Ably, but because I love my other stuff so much, it's hard to make the transition.
Yeah, and that's fair. Knowing that the Filium treatment works on wool, part of me is like, why is nobody doing merino wool this way? Because if you had merino wool and all of its natural properties and you could enhance it,
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe merino wool is different in some way that maybe it doesn't work as well, or maybe just nobody's thought of it yet. I don't know. But
I mean, merino wool proponents are they brag about how it's anti-stink and antimicrobial, and that's true. It's like more antimicrobial and less stinky than just regular cotton. It does get stinky, but
I know.
But that's one of the things that people rave about as far as merino wool goes, is how it reduces the odor. And it's like, well, it does, but let's not pretend that the stuff doesn't get really stinky within a day.
Right.
Like my shirts get yucky, but I do repeatedly wear them. I'm not packing 3 shirts on a backpacking trip. I'm just sucking it up and stinking when it's just me, myself, and I.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I have respect. I think merino wool is a great fabric, but I think one of the things that sort of is a testament to how effective the technology is for Ably Apparel is that they're taking cotton and making it stink less and dry faster, and it'll stink less than the merino for days and days on end. Most of my Ably stuff, I'll get close to a week of wears out of them without washing them, unless I am actively like on a hiking trip wearing them in the sun 3 days at a time. And even then, they're probably still wearable. Day 4, day 5, you're just starting to notice, okay, this is getting it's letting you know you've been sweating.
And so how often do you typically wash the underwear and the socks? Just, when you're out, when you're at home, regular life stuff.
Yeah. So generally my practice is after I've worn them for a day, I will give them the sniff test and just say, okay, did I sweat into these too much? Have they actually absorbed enough smell that they should get washed? And I think usually it's about 3 wears for that stuff, which is very close to my skin, parts of my body that tend to sweat a little more, tend to maybe smell a little more strongly than the shirts do. And so I think for the most part, I'm getting about 3 times as much wear out of them as my regular other clothing, which I feel is pretty good, especially given that it's not that much more expensive than other clothing is these days, unless you're getting stuff solely on clearance.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And that's going to have an environmental effect as well.
Right. Yeah. So we're using a little bit less water washing things, hopefully, theoretically. And the more of my wardrobe that I start to replace with this, that means even less stuff that I'm throwing into the laundry, even less water that we're using and soap that we're using to keep our clothes clean.
Yeah, let's pretend that a big reason that you're using Ably is reduced environmental impact. Let's pretend we're like really good people.
Yeah, that's definitely the reason. No, it's a benefit. It's a benefit I appreciate. I'm happy to use less water when possible.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot. Speaking of, I guess, I feel like that kind of brings us to sort of the end of what there is to say.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk cost real quick.
Yeah.
Like, how expensive is this shit?
So it's definitely not cheap, right? I think, depending on what you're looking to purchase, any given article of clothing, shirt, pants, something like that, if you're paying full price, you're probably looking at spending between $40 and $60. So it's priced as a higher end, as a premium clothing brand. Maybe not like super high end, right?
This is no Gucci.
Yeah, we're not paying $500 for a white t-shirt here, but it's definitely not Old Navy either.
Yeah.
And that's reflected in the benefit of it not stinking, right? You're getting that, but you are paying for that for sure.
But they run a lot of sales too.
They do. Yeah, if you wait for the holiday sales, very often stuff is going on sale 50% off. And that's when we tend to pick up a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I think I got you a pair of boxer shorts, the gaiter, a pillowcase.
Yeah.
I feel like there was one other item thrown in there, and I got all of that for less than $70 for your Christmas present, technically last year. And I felt like that was a steal of a deal.
Yeah. No, yeah. You actually got me more stuff than I was expecting to get, which was nice. I appreciated that. Thank you.
So really, I think the value is definitely there. If you're patient, if you wait for the sales, you're going to be able to get it and probably not spend that much more than you're already spending on your clothing.
Yeah, I think especially if you are looking at this as picking up clothing that's going to last a long time. If you're living in a place where maybe there's high humidity or a place that's hot where you sweat a lot, the benefit that you're going to get from being able to walk around all day in this stuff and not stink is, this is like all those deodorant commercials are like, still fresh. That's what it's like, right? Except it's in real life. It's not the bullshit that, no deodorant is lasting 24 hours, right? Like,
yeah.
But this stuff actually is. So it's great. And the thing about Ably that makes me recommend them is like the first stop for picking up Filium technology clothing is that they have not just great sales, but also a fantastic rewards program. So you can sign up for their rewards program and you'll earn points on every purchase. It does not take that many purchases to start getting coupons. Right now, I actually have a $25 coupon sitting in my account, and there's no minimum purchase. So I can pick something up. If I want to pick up another pair of socks, I think, I can get a pair of socks for $20 to $30, depending on which one I want, full price. And so I can get that for free. It's not $25 off if you spend $100.
Right, one of those bullshit coupons.
Yeah, that's what you see most places. So it's very generous. It's very nice. And there's a great referral program. So you can share with your friends. You can share it with a spouse, a roommate. Even if you just want them to buy something for you, you just send them a code and they get $20 off of their first purchase, which is phenomenal. And so I think we're going to drop that link in the show notes. And if somebody, if you want to check them out, that's a great place to start. $20 off makes just about anything a lot more affordable.
Yeah. Anything else that you would add about Ably?
No, I mean, it's all kind of there on the website, sustainable manufacturing practices. They're Blue Sign certified. If that's the kind of thing you care about, I'm always happy to see it. It's maybe not the first thing that I look for.
Yeah, I mean, we're always happy when companies are more environmentally conscious. We might not only shop those places, but we're very happy to see it because we do love Mother Earth.
Right. Yeah. If I have an equal choice, all things being equal, right, I'm always going to choose the company that's more environmentally friendly. So.
All right. Well, would you recommend this product to our listeners?
Yeah, 10 out of 10 would buy again.
All right. I think that's all that needs to be said.
Okay. Well, that's it. Thanks everyone for tuning in to this episode of This Fucking Trail.
Happy hiking.